In the teachings of Dr. Joseph Murphy, words are not just sounds, they are powerful triggers that activate the deeper forces of your subconscious mind. The words you repeat, the thoughts you accept, and the beliefs you hold quietly shape your financial reality. In this speech, the wealth trigger words, you will discover how certain words, spoken with belief and conviction, can awaken the hidden intelligence within you that attracts prosperity, opportunities, and financial abundance. When you understand how your subconscious mind responds to focused language and faith-filled affirmations, you begin to shift your internal programming. Your mind becomes a magnet for wealth, success, and unlimited possibilities. The transformation begins the moment you choose the right words and repeat them with unwavering belief. Words are far more powerful than most people realize. Every word you speak carries an idea, an image, and an emotional charge that impresses itself upon your subconscious mind. According to the teachings of Dr. Joseph Murphy, the subconscious mind is always listening, always receiving impressions, and always working to express what it accepts as true. The words you repeat daily are not simply sounds leaving your lips. They are mental seeds being planted into the fertile soil of your deeper mind. Most people speak carelessly about money and success without understanding the consequences. They say things like, I never have enough, money is hard to get, or I will always struggle. These statements may feel harmless in the moment, but each one becomes a suggestion to the subconscious mind. The subconscious does not argue or question the truth of what you say. It simply accepts the impression and begins to organize your thoughts, feelings, and actions around that belief. If a person repeatedly declares limitation, the subconscious mind begins to reproduce limitation. Opportunities may pass unnoticed. Confidence begins to weaken. The mind becomes conditioned to expect lack rather than abundance. Over time, the outer circumstances begin to mirror the inner language that has been repeated again and again. This is why words can become powerful triggers. A trigger is something that activates a response. In the same way that a small spark can ignite a great flame, a simple word spoken with belief can activate powerful forces within your subconscious mind. When the right words are repeated with faith, emotion, and consistency, they awaken the creative intelligence within you. Your subconscious mind is like a vast storehouse of power, wisdom, and creative energy. It operates 24 hours a day, whether you are aware of it or not. It regulates the beating of your heart, the flow of your breath, and the countless processes that sustain life. Because it governs so much of your inner world, it also influences the patterns that appear in your outer life. The language you use becomes the instructions given to this deeper intelligence. Words form mental pictures, and these pictures are impressed upon the subconscious mind. When you say the words wealth, abundance, prosperity, or success, your mind begins to form images connected with these ideas. If those words are repeated regularly and accepted emotionally, they begin to shape the expectations within your subconscious. Expectation is one of the most powerful forces in the human mind. What you expect with conviction often becomes the direction in which your life begins to move. When your words consistently express wealth and opportunity, your subconscious mind gradually accepts the pattern as normal and natural. Think of the subconscious mind as fertile soil. Whatever seed you plant will grow, whether it is a seed of fear or a seed of faith. The soil does not judge the seed. It simply nurtures what has been planted. In the same way, your subconscious mind nurtures the ideas you repeatedly express through your words. If someone plants seeds of doubt, the harvest will be doubt. If someone plants seeds of confidence, the harvest will be confidence. If someone plants seeds of prosperity through the language they use every day, the harvest gradually becomes prosperity. Many people attempt to change their financial situation by changing only their actions while ignoring their inner language. They work harder, chase opportunities, and search for external solutions, yet the inner conversation remains filled with worry, fear, and doubt. As long as the subconscious mind continues to receive messages of limitation, it will quietly guide behavior in ways that reinforce those limitations. This is why wealth trigger words are so important. They help shift the inner conversation. They replace the old mental patterns of scarcity with new patterns of possibility. When you deliberately choose words that express abundance, you begin to create a new mental environment within yourself. The process is simple but powerful. A word spoken with feeling becomes a suggestion. A suggestion repeated consistently becomes a belief. A belief accepted by the subconscious mind becomes a pattern. And a pattern expressed through thought, emotion, and action becomes reality. The key is repetition combined with belief. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition. Just as a habit is formed through repeated behavior, a mental pattern is formed through repeated language. Every time you repeat a word connected to prosperity, you strengthen the neural pathway associated with that idea. Over time, your mind begins to feel more comfortable with the idea of wealth. What once felt distant or unrealistic begins to feel possible and natural. This shift in perception is subtle, yet it has profound consequences. When your mind accepts prosperity as normal, your actions, decisions, and awareness begin to change. You start noticing opportunities that once went unnoticed. Your confidence grows stronger. Your thinking becomes more creative and solution-oriented. The world around you begins to appear different, not because the world has changed, but because your perception has changed. The power of words lies in their ability to guide attention. Whatever you repeatedly speak about becomes the focus of your awareness. When your words focus on problems, your attention remains fixed on obstacles. When your words focus on abundance, your attention begins to search for possibilities. This shift in attention activates the creative power of the subconscious mind. Instead of working from a place of fear or survival, the mind begins to work from a place of expansion and possibility. Ideas begin to appear. Inspiration emerges. Confidence grows stronger. Another important aspect of trigger words is the emotion behind them. Words spoken mechanically have limited impact, but words spoken with conviction carry emotional energy. Emotion acts as the amplifier of suggestion. When you say a word like prosperity while genuinely feeling hopeful, confident, or grateful, the impression upon your subconscious mind becomes much stronger. Your subconscious mind responds deeply to feeling. It understands emotion more clearly than logic. This is why people often experience powerful change when they combine positive language with emotional conviction. Imagine repeating a simple phrase connected to wealth every day with calm confidence. At first, it may feel unfamiliar. The old beliefs may attempt to resist the new language, but with persistence, the repetition begins to soften those old patterns. Gradually, the mind begins to accept the new suggestion. The phrase becomes familiar. The emotional resistance fades. What once felt like wishful thinking begins to feel like a natural expectation. This transformation does not happen overnight, but it happens through consistency. The subconscious mind is always listening, always receiving impressions, always shaping the patterns that influence your life. By choosing your words carefully, you take control of the instructions you give to your subconscious mind instead of feeding it language that reinforces fear or limitation. You provide it with language that encourages growth, prosperity, and opportunity. Over time, these words become mental triggers that activate confidence, creativity, and faith in your ability to succeed. They remind your mind of the direction you have chosen. They reinforce the belief that abundance is not something reserved for a few fortunate individuals, but a natural expression of the creative power within every human being. As you continue to repeat wealth-centered language, your subconscious mind begins to align with that vision. The inner atmosphere of your mind changes. Fear begins to lose its influence. Doubt gradually weakens. Confidence becomes stronger. Your thoughts begin to move towards solutions rather than problems. Your emotional state becomes more stable and optimistic. The ideas you entertain begin to reflect a mindset of possibility rather than limitation. And because your subconscious mind influences your actions, your behavior begins to shift as well. You become more willing to explore opportunities. You become more persistent in pursuing your goals. You begin to act with the quiet confidence that success is not a distant dream, but a natural outcome of the thoughts and words you consistently impress upon your mind. Every great transformation begins with a change in thought, and every thought is expressed through words. When you master the language you use within your own mind, you gain the ability to guide the direction of your life. Words become the keys that unlock the deeper powers within you. They become the signals that direct your subconscious mind toward growth, opportunity, and prosperity. Through conscious repetition, emotional conviction, and unwavering belief, these simple trigger words begin to reshape the patterns of thought that influence your financial destiny. Language shapes the way a person thinks about life, success, and money. Every culture, every community, and every individual develops a certain vocabulary when speaking about wealth and prosperity. Some people grow up hearing words that reinforce limitation, while others are surrounded by language that encourages opportunity and growth. The words you consistently use when thinking or speaking about money become the mental environment in which your subconscious mind operates. According to the teachings of Dr. Joseph Murphy, the subconscious mind faithfully accepts the ideas impressed upon it through repetition and belief. It does not distinguish between positive or negative language. It simply receives the suggestion and begins to organize thoughts, emotions, and behaviors around that impression. Because of this, the language you use about wealth becomes a powerful influence over your financial reality. Many people unknowingly speak a language of scarcity. They repeat phrases that emphasize struggle, lack, or impossibility. Words like, "I can't afford it," "money is always tight," or "rich people are lucky," become deeply embedded in the subconscious mind. These statements may seem harmless, but each one reinforces the idea that wealth is distant, difficult, or unattainable. When these words are repeated daily, they form a mental pattern. The subconscious mind accepts the pattern as truth and begins to guide perception in ways that confirm it. Opportunities may appear less visible. Confidence may decrease. Fear of risk or change may grow stronger. Over time, the external circumstances of life begin to reflect the internal language that has been accepted as normal. The language of wealth is different. It is built upon words that express possibility, confidence, and abundance. People who develop this language train their minds to think in terms of growth rather than limitation. They speak about opportunities instead of obstacles. They focus on solutions rather than problems. When a person begins to adopt this language intentionally, they begin to reshape the impressions stored within their subconscious mind. Instead of feeding it messages of scarcity, they provide it with ideas connected to prosperity, creativity, and expansion. Words such as abundance, prosperity, increase, opportunity, and success begin to replace the old vocabulary of limitation. Every word carries a certain mental image. When you say the word abundance, your mind begins to imagine fullness, expansion, and plenty. When you say the word opportunity, your mind begins to imagine doors opening and possibilities appearing. These mental images are quietly impressed upon the subconscious mind, where they begin to influence your expectations. Expectation is a powerful force. When your mind expects opportunities, it becomes more alert to the signs of possibility around you. When your mind expects success, it begins to interpret events through a more confident perspective. The language you use creates the lens through which you view the world. Developing the language of wealth is not about pretending or denying reality. It is about choosing words that direct your mind toward constructive thinking. Every problem contains the seed of a solution, but the mind must be trained to search for that solution rather than becoming trapped in fear or doubt. For example, instead of saying, "I will never get ahead financially," the language of wealth encourages statements like, "I am learning new ways to create prosperity." Instead of declaring, "There are no opportunities for me," the language shifts to, "New opportunities are constantly appearing in my life." These themes may seem simple, but they begin to change the emotional tone of your thinking. Your subconscious mind responds strongly to emotional tone. Words filled with fear or frustration create tension within the mind. Words filled with confidence and hope create a sense of possibility. When your language consistently carries the emotional tone of abundance, your subconscious mind begins to accept that emotional state as familiar and natural. As this pattern develops, your thinking begins to change in subtle but important ways. You become more creative in solving problems. You become more open to learning new skills. Your confidence grows stronger when facing challenges. The language you use begins to shape the way you interpret experiences. Another important aspect of the language of wealth is gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most powerful emotional states the human mind can experience. When you speak words of appreciation for what you already have, you train your mind to recognize value and possibility. Gratitude shifts attention away from what is missing and toward what is present. The subconscious mind responds strongly to this shift in focus. When your language regularly includes expressions of gratitude for prosperity, growth, and opportunity, your mind becomes more receptive to those experiences. You begin to notice resources, connections, and possibilities that once went unnoticed. The language of wealth also involves clarity. Vague language creates vague impressions in the mind. Clear language creates clear mental images. When you speak clearly about your goals and intentions, you provide your subconscious mind with a stronger direction. For example, instead of saying, "I want more money," a clearer statement might be, "I am attracting greater financial opportunities and increasing my income." The second statement creates a more vivid mental picture. It encourages the mind to imagine progress and growth. This clarity helps your subconscious mind align your thoughts and actions with the direction you have chosen. Your mind begins to search for ideas and opportunities that match the language you repeat. Consistency is another essential part of this process. The subconscious mind learns through repetition. One positive statement spoken once has limited impact. Go. But a statement repeated daily begins to create a new pattern of thinking. The more often you speak the language of wealth, the stronger that pattern becomes. Over time, these words begin to influence your inner dialogue. Even when you are not consciously repeating them, the ideas behind them begin to appear in your thoughts. Your internal conversation gradually shifts from worry and doubt to confidence and possibility. This transformation does not require perfection. Everyone experiences moments of fear or uncertainty. The important thing is to return consistently to the language that supports your vision of prosperity. Each time you replace a negative statement with a constructive one, you strengthen the new mental pathway. The language of wealth also encourages responsibility. It reminds you that your thoughts and words play a role in shaping your life. Instead of blaming circumstances or external conditions, you begin to recognize the power you have to influence your mindset. This awareness creates a sense of personal empowerment. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as a participant in the creative process of your life. Your words become tools that guide your thinking, shape your expectations, and influence your actions. As your vocabulary continues to evolve, you begin to feel more comfortable with the idea of prosperity. Wealth no longer feels distant or unrealistic. It begins to feel like a natural possibility. This change in feeling is important because the subconscious mind responds strongly to what feels natural. When prosperity begins to feel normal rather than extraordinary, your behavior begins to align with that expectation. You become more willing to invest in learning, to explore opportunities, and to take thoughtful action toward your goals. The language of wealth does not guarantee instant success, but it creates the mental environment necessary for growth. It prepares your mind to recognize opportunity and to act with confidence when those opportunities appear. Every word you choose becomes part of this environment. Each statement either strengthens the belief in abundance or reinforces the belief in limitation. By consciously choosing words that reflect prosperity, creativity, and growth, you guide your subconscious mind toward a more expansive vision of what is possible. As this new language becomes part of your daily thinking, it gradually replaces the old patterns that once limited your perspective. Your mind becomes more focused on solutions, more receptive to ideas, and more confident in its ability to create positive change. The language of wealth becomes a habit of thought. It influences the way you speak to yourself, the way you interpret challenges, and the way you imagine your future. It encourages a mindset that welcomes growth, embraces opportunity, and expects prosperity as a natural expression of the creative power within the human mind. The subconscious mind is the silent force that shapes much of human behavior, belief, and experience. It stores the patterns of thought that have been repeated throughout life and quietly guides the decisions, reactions, and expectations that influence a person's financial journey. Many people attempt to improve their financial situation by focusing only on external strategies. Yet the true foundation of wealth begins with the patterns that exist within the subconscious mind. When these patterns are rooted in fear, doubt, or limitation, they influence every action and perception connected to money. According to the teachings of Dr. Joseph Murphy, the subconscious mind accepts ideas that are repeatedly impressed upon it through belief and emotion. It acts like fertile soil that receives every seed planted by thoughts and words. Whatever is planted consistently will eventually grow and express itself through behavior, attitudes, and life circumstances. If the mind has been conditioned with ideas of scarcity or struggle, those ideas quietly shape expectations and influence the direction of life. Reprogramming the subconscious mind for financial abundance begins with awareness. A person must first recognize the patterns that have been operating automatically for years. These patterns often appear in the form of habitual thoughts such as, money is difficult to earn, I'm not good with finances, or success is for other people. These ideas may have been learned from childhood experiences, family conversations, cultural beliefs, or past disappointments. Once these patterns are recognized, the process of transformation can begin. Reprogramming the mind does not happen by force or by rejecting old beliefs aggressively. It happens through the steady introduction of new ideas that gradually replace the old impressions stored in the subconscious. This process works through repetition, imagination, emotion, and focused attention. The first step in this transformation is the conscious selection of new thoughts about money and prosperity. Instead of allowing the mind to repeat the old narrative of limitation, a person begins to introduce statements that reflect growth and possibility. These statements are often called affirmations because they affirm a new belief that is being planted within the subconscious mind. When these affirmations are repeated regularly, they begin to form new mental pathways. At first, the mind may resist them because they seem unfamiliar compared to the old patterns. This resistance is natural. The subconscious mind is designed to preserve what it already believes to be true. However, persistence gradually softens this resistance. Every repetition of a new idea strengthens the impression it creates within the subconscious. Just as water slowly shapes stone through continuous flow, repeated thoughts begin to reshape the mental landscape of the mind. The key is consistency. A single affirmation spoken occasionally has limited influence, but an affirmation repeated daily with belief begins to create change. Visualization is another powerful method used to reprogram the subconscious mind. The subconscious responds strongly to images. When a person imagines themselves experiencing success, prosperity, and financial growth, the mind begins to accept those images as possible realities. These images become internal blueprints that influence the direction of thought and action. For example, a person may imagine receiving new opportunities, building successful projects, or achieving financial stability. As these images are repeated in the mind, they create emotional responses such as confidence, excitement, and motivation. These emotions strengthen the impression being placed upon the subconscious mind. Emotion plays a critical role in reprogramming mental patterns. Thoughts that carry strong emotional energy are more easily accepted by the subconscious. When affirmations and visualizations are combined with feelings of gratitude, confidence, and expectation, the subconscious mind receives a much stronger signal. Gratitude is especially powerful in this process. When a person expresses gratitude for prosperity, even before it fully appears in their life, they train their mind to operate from a state of abundance rather than lack. Gratitude shifts the emotional atmosphere of the mind. Instead of focusing on what is missing, the mind begins to recognize possibilities and resources that already exist. As the subconscious mind begins to accept new ideas about wealth, subtle changes occur in behavior and perception. The person becomes more attentive to opportunities that align with their new beliefs. They may feel inspired to learn new skills, explore different strategies, or connect with people who share a mindset of growth and success. Confidence begins to grow as the new mental pattern strengthens. Actions that once felt intimidating begin to feel manageable. Decisions become clearer because they are guided by a mindset that expects progress rather than failure. The individual begins to move through life with a greater sense of purpose and direction. Another important part of reprogramming the subconscious mind is the control of internal dialogue. Every person carries on a constant conversation within their mind. This inner dialogue can either reinforce old limitations or support new possibilities. When the inner voice repeatedly speaks words of encouragement, belief, and determination, it strengthens the new mental pattern being formed. Replacing negative self-talk is an essential practice in this transformation. When a limiting thought appears, it can be consciously replaced with a statement that reflects growth and confidence. This does not require ignoring challenges or pretending that problems do not exist. It simply means choosing a constructive perspective that encourages progress. Environment also plays an important role in shaping subconscious beliefs. The ideas a person is exposed to through books, conversations, and experiences influence the thoughts that enter the mind. When someone surrounds themselves with positive information, inspiring ideas, and people who believe in growth, they create an environment that supports the reprogramming process. Reading uplifting material, listening to motivational teachings, and studying successful individuals can reinforce the belief that prosperity is achievable. These influences provide the mind with examples and ideas that support the new mental pattern being developed. Patience is another important quality in this process. The subconscious mind has been shaped by years of repeated thoughts and experiences. Changing those patterns requires time and persistence. Each day of consistent practice strengthens the new mental direction. Over time, the new beliefs begin to feel natural. What once seemed unrealistic begins to feel possible and even expected. The mind gradually shifts from a state of doubt to a state of belief. This shift changes the emotional foundation from which decisions are made. As this transformation continues, the individual begins to act in ways that align with their new mindset. They become more willing to take initiative, pursue opportunities, and remain persistent in the face of challenges. The fear that once held them back begins to lose its influence. The subconscious mind starts working in harmony with conscious intentions. Ideas appear more easily. Motivation becomes stronger. Creative solutions emerge when problems arise. The mind begins to function as an ally in the pursuit of prosperity rather than an obstacle shaped by old fears. This alignment between conscious goals and subconscious belief creates powerful momentum. Actions become more focused and purposeful. Opportunities that once seemed distant begin to feel accessible. Confidence grows with each step forward. Reprogramming the subconscious mind is ultimately a process of replacing old mental habits with new ones. Each thought repeated with belief becomes a small step toward transformation. Each affirmation strengthens the foundation of a new mindset. Each moment of visualization plants another seed in the fertile soil of the subconscious. Gradually, the mental environment changes. The patterns that once supported limitation are replaced by patterns that encourage growth and prosperity. The mind becomes more receptive to ideas of success and abundance. As these patterns deepen, they influence every aspect of thinking and behavior. The person begins to approach life with greater optimism, resilience, and creativity. Challenges are viewed as opportunities for learning rather than evidence of failure. Through consistent practice, the subconscious mind becomes aligned with the vision of financial abundance. The inner world of thought and belief begins to support the outer pursuit of prosperity. The ideas planted through repetition and belief continue to grow stronger within the subconscious mind, shaping expectations, guiding actions, and influencing the path toward greater wealth and opportunity.